I once believed family meant everything. I was about to marry Jessica, my college sweetheart of 4 years. My younger brother Derek and I were close since childhood, when I helped raise him after our dad left. I never imagined the people I trusted most would betray me so completely. But nothing cut deeper than hearing my own mother say, "She was never meant for you anyway." I disappeared without a word that day. If you've ever been betrayed by those closest to you, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe. What I did next might just inspire you to rewrite your own story. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where everyone knew each other. Our family wasn't wealthy by any means, but we got by until my father walked out when I was 12. Derek was only 7 at the time, too young to fully understand what was happening. All he knew was that Dad was gone, and Mom cried a lot. With our mother working 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads, I stepped up to help raise Derek. I made his breakfast every morning, helped with homework, attended his school events, and made sure he never felt abandoned, despite our circumstances. I even turned down hanging out with friends to stay home with him when Mom worked late shifts. We developed a special bond through those years that I thought was unbreakable. By the time I reached high school, I was working weekends at the local hardware store and mowing lawns to contribute to our household expenses. Mom developed arthritis in her knees from years of working as a waitress, making it harder for her to take extra shifts. I wanted to make sure Derek could join sports teams and have as normal a childhood as possible, so I took on more responsibility. There were nights I stayed up until 2 in the morning finishing my homework after a long day of schoolwork and taking care of family matters. Despite the challenges, I managed to maintain good grades and earned a partial scholarship to the state university. College was my ticket to a better life, not just for me but for all of us. I was the first in our family to pursue higher education, and my mother, despite her tough exterior, cried when she dropped me off at my dorm. It was during my sophomore year that I met Jessica in a literature class we both took as an elective. She was studying nursing while I was pursuing construction management. Jessica had this infectious laugh that would turn heads in the cafeteria and a kindness that showed in everything she did. When she volunteered at the campus blood drive, she held the hands of nervous first-time donors. When she studied in the library, she always brought extra snacks to share with stressed students around her. Our first date was simple coffee and a walk through campus, but by the end of it I knew there was something special between us. Jessica came from a more comfortable background than mine, but she never made me feel less than. She understood my family obligations and often came home with me on weekends to help my mother around the house or tutor Derek in subjects he struggled with. Over our 4 years together, we built a solid foundation. We discussed our future in concrete terms: marriage after graduation, saving for a modest house, having 2 children once our careers were established. Jessica finished her nursing degree and got a job at the local hospital while I joined a construction company with good advancement opportunities. We rented a small apartment together, furnishing it piece by piece with items we could afford. After saving for 8 months, I finally had enough for the engagement ring Jessica deserved. It wasn't extravagant, but it was beautiful, a single diamond with a vintage setting that reminded me of her grandmother's jewelry she always admired. I proposed on our 4th anniversary during a picnic at the park where we had our first kiss. When she said yes, I felt like everything in my life was finally falling perfectly into place. Meanwhile, Derek had been struggling to find his path. He dropped out of community college after 1 semester, claiming it wasn't for him, and bounced between retail jobs without finding anything that stuck. When he got fired from the local grocery store for repeatedly showing up late, I pulled some strings to get him hired at my construction company. It was entry-level work, mostly cleanup and material handling. But it paid better than his previous jobs and had potential for advancement if he applied himself. Jessica went above and beyond to help him too. She revised his resume, coached him through interview techniques, and even bought him proper work clothes when he started at the construction company. "He's family," she would say whenever I thanked her for her kindness toward my brother. That summer I was putting in extra hours at work, hoping to qualify for a promotion to project manager. The position came with a significant pay raise that would help Jessica and me save for our wedding and a down payment on a house. My long hours meant Jessica had more free time on her hands, and she often spent it with Derek, helping him get his life together, as she put it. At first, I encouraged their friendship. My brother and my future wife getting along so well seemed like a blessing. They would go shopping for groceries together, or Jessica would help him look for a better apartment. Sometimes they would be watching a movie at our place when I got home from a long day. I was simply grateful that the two most important people in my life cared about each other. Looking back, there were signs I completely missed. The way their conversations would sometimes stop when I entered a room. The inside jokes they developed that I wasn't part of. The subtle change in Jessica's affection toward me, still present but somehow different, more perfunctory than passionate. In September, I had to travel to Philadelphia for a 3-day training seminar related to my potential promotion. The company paid for everything, putting us up in a decent hotel near the convention center. The seminar finished half a day earlier than expected, so I decided to surprise Jessica by coming home early. I stopped by a florist, picked up her favorite takeout, and bought a bottle of wine to create a romantic evening. I was excited to tell her about the training and how my boss had all but confirmed I would get the promotion. When I arrived at our apartment, I found it empty. Jessica's car wasn't in its usual spot, and she wasn't answering my calls. I figured she might be working a shift at the hospital, though according to the schedule on our fridge, she should have been home. I was putting the food in the oven to keep it warm when my phone buzzed with a text from Derek: "Need to talk to you as soon as possible. Come to Mom's." The urgency in his message concerned me. Had something happened to our mother? I drove to her house immediately, the romantic evening forgotten. When I arrived, I found Derek's car and Jessica's parked in the driveway. Inside, the three of them, Derek, Jessica, and my mother, were sitting in the living room with grave expressions. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" I asked immediately, worried about my mother's health. Derek stood up, his face a mask of concern that in retrospect was too perfectly composed. "Gordon, I have something I need to show you. I really wish I didn't have to do this." He pulled out his phone and showed me what appeared to be security camera footage from a hotel corridor. The date stamp matched my business trip. The grainy video showed someone who resembled me entering a room with a woman who was definitely not Jessica. Derek swiped to another clip showing the same couple leaving the room hours later, looking disheveled. "One of my friends works hotel security in Philly," Derek explained. "He recognized you from pictures on my social media and sent me this." I stared at the screen in confusion. "That's not me," I said finally. "I mean, it looks like me, but that never happened. I was alone the entire trip." Jessica, who had been silently crying, looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "Stop lying, Gordon. The evidence is right there." "Jessica, I swear to you, that's not me." "Or, if it is, the video has been edited. Or I knew something was off," she interrupted. "You've been distant for months, working late business trips. Classic signs. Because I've been trying to get promoted. For us, for our future." My mother, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Gordon, just tell the truth. We have proof." I couldn't believe what was happening. My own family was accusing me of something I hadn't done, and none of them were willing to even consider my side. Jessica stood up and removed her engagement ring, placing it on the coffee table with a finality that made my stomach drop. "I can't marry someone I can't trust." "Jessica, please," I begged. "Let me prove it to you. We can call the hotel, check my room charges." There was only ever one key issued. I attended every session of the seminar. There are witnesses, photographs. "I think you should leave," Derek said, moving to put his arm around Jessica, who was sobbing now. The gesture seemed oddly possessive, but I was too shocked to process it at the time. As I stood there speechless, my mother delivered the blow that would haunt me for years. "Maybe this is for the best. I always thought Jessica was too good for you anyway. You're too much like your father." Those words hit me harder than the false accusation itself. After everything I had done, stepping up when my father left, helping raise Derek, working myself to exhaustion to help support our family, she still saw me as a reflection of the man who abandoned us. And worse, she believed I was capable of the same callous betrayal. I left the house in a daze and spent that night driving aimlessly around town, trying to make sense of what had happened. By morning, I had formulated a plan to clear my name. I contacted the hotel and requested they check their security records for any evidence that might exonerate me. I reached out to colleagues from the seminar who could verify my whereabouts. I even offered to take a lie detector test if that would convince Jessica. But Jessica refused to see me or take my calls. My mother told me to stop making things worse and accept the consequences of my actions. Derek suggested I give Jessica space to process everything. For a week, I gathered evidence, credit card statements showing I had dinner alone each night of the trip, emails from the seminar organizers confirming my attendance at all sessions, even a signed statement from my hotel roommate attesting that I had been in our room alone each night after dinner. None of it mattered. No one would look at my evidence or hear my side. The final blow came 2 weeks after the accusation. I was picking up takeout from a restaurant across town when I saw them. Jessica and Derek seated at a corner table, holding hands intimately. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This hadn't been about some fabricated cheating scandal. This was about them. I confronted them right there in the restaurant. Derek, perhaps sensing he no longer needed to maintain the charade, smirked as I approached. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. Jessica at least had the decency to look ashamed. "Gordon, I'm sorry. It just happened. Nothing just happens," I said. "That video was fake, wasn't it? You made it all up." Derek shrugged. "You always got everything, Gordon. The grades, the scholarship, the good job, the girl. Maybe I decided it was my turn to have something for once. And honestly, Jessica and I make more sense together. You were always going to hold her back." I looked at Jessica. "And you believed him. After 4 years together, you couldn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. She couldn't meet my eyes. Things weren't perfect between us, Gordon. They hadn't been for a while. So you cheat with my brother and let him destroy my reputation. Was anything real with us? I left. Before they could respond, my world completely shattered. The final revelation came the next day when a mutual friend called to check on me. During our conversation, he mentioned seeing my mother having lunch with Derek and Jessica several times over the past months. "She seemed really supportive of them," he said awkwardly. "I thought you knew." That was when I realized the depth of the betrayal. This hadn't been a sudden decision or a momentary lapse. This had been a calculated plan, and my own mother had been complicit in it. I made my decision that night. I would cut all ties and start fresh somewhere else. I sold my car, furniture, and anything else I couldn't fit in a suitcase. I withdrew my savings, about $8,000, and bought a one-way ticket to Chicago, a city where I knew no one, and no one knew me. I left only one message behind, a letter to my mother that simply read, "You chose the wrong son. Goodbye." Chicago greeted me with characteristic indifference, a city too busy to notice one more broken person trying to rebuild. I found a studio apartment in a rundown building on the west side, all I could afford while making my savings last. It was barely 200 square feet with a shower that leaked and windows that rattled with every passing train. But it was mine, and it was far from the betrayal I had left behind. I found work quickly, thanks to my construction experience. I took whatever jobs I could get, primarily general labor at first, working alongside immigrants who taught me Spanish phrases during lunch breaks. The physical labor was therapeutic, helping me work through my anger and hurt with each swing of a sledgehammer during demolition jobs. By day, I built things for others, and by night, I slowly rebuilt myself. 3 months into my new life, I enrolled in night classes at a community college, studying business management. I would work from 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, grab dinner from a food truck, and then attend classes from 6 until 9:30. Back in my tiny apartment, I would study until my eyes couldn't stay open any longer. The exhausting schedule left little time to dwell on the past. The turning point came unexpectedly about 10 months after I arrived in Chicago. I was working on a renovation project for a high-end condominium building when I noticed issues with the blueprints that would cause problems down the line. Instead of just following orders, I brought my concerns to the project manager, who dismissed them. Frustrated, I detailed my observations and solutions in an email to the general contractor. The next day, a man in an expensive suit appeared on site and asked to speak with me. His name was Victor Adelman, the property developer behind the project. Instead of being angry about my stepping outside the chain of command, he was impressed by my initiative and knowledge. "You have a good eye," he said after discussing my concerns. "How long have you been in construction?" We talked for nearly an hour. I explained my background in construction management and my current business studies. Before leaving, Victor handed me his business card with his personal number written on the back. "My company is always looking for people who can spot problems before they become expensive mistakes. Give me a call if you're interested in a change." 2 weeks later, I was working as a junior project coordinator for Adelman Development. The position came with a significant pay increase, allowing me to move to a better apartment and fully focus on my studies. More importantly, Victor became a mentor, teaching me the real estate development business from the inside. "The secret isn't just building properties," he told me one day over lunch. "It's recognizing potential where others see problems." I absorbed everything I could about property acquisition, financing, zoning laws, and market analysis. Victor noticed my natural talent for identifying promising investment opportunities and increasingly trusted my judgment. By my 3rd year with the company, I was managing small development projects on my own. During this time, I also focused on my personal growth. The betrayal had left deep wounds that needed proper healing. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in abandonment issues, working through my feelings about my father leaving and now the betrayal by my mother, brother, and ex-fiancée. "Your success will be the best response to their betrayal," my therapist said during one session. "But make sure you're building your new life for yourself, not as a reaction to them." It was sound advice that I took to heart. I made genuine friendships through business connections, my night classes, and a running group I joined. I dated occasionally, but kept relationships casual, still working through trust issues from my past. After 6 years with Adelman Development, I had learned enough to take a calculated risk. With Victor's blessing and some of his investors' backing, I started my own small development company. My first project was the renovation of an abandoned warehouse into loft apartments in an up-and-coming neighborhood. The project came in under budget and sold out before construction was even completed. Building on that success, I expanded to larger projects, a mixed-use development near the university campus, a boutique hotel renovation in the theater district, and affordable housing initiatives that earned goodwill and valuable tax incentives. My company developed a reputation for quality work, innovative design, and fair business practices. It was during the hotel renovation that I met Elaine, an architect whose firm was handling the redesign. She challenged my ideas, pushed for better solutions, and refused to compromise on qualities that initially frustrated me, but ultimately earned my respect. Our professional relationship gradually evolved into friendship, and eventually something deeper. Unlike my relationship with Jessica, which had been built on youthful idealism and shared circumstances, my connection with Elaine developed through mutual respect, honest communication, and shared values. She knew my full story. I had learned the importance of transparency and helped me see that vulnerability wasn't weakness, but strength. "Your family's betrayal doesn't define you," she told me one night, as we looked out over the Chicago skyline from my downtown condo. "But how you responded to it does. You built something meaningful instead of letting it destroy you." 7 years after leaving my hometown, I received a letter forwarded through Victor, who had maintained the same office address since I'd started working with him. The envelope had no return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately. Inside was a 3-page letter. She explained that she had been trying to find me for years. She apologized for not believing me and for her cruel words. She wrote that Derek and Jessica had married 6 months after I left, but were now struggling financially. Derek had lost his job at the construction company after repeatedly missing work, and they had moved in with my mother temporarily, which had stretched into 2 years. She mentioned they had a child now, and were going through hard times. The letter concluded with an invitation to the annual family reunion taking place in 3 weeks, at the same park where we had gathered since I was a child. I showed the letter to Elaine that evening. "Are you going to go?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to show them I survived, that I'm better off without them. Another part says, just burn the letter and keep moving forward." "What would give you the most peace?" she asked. "Complete separation, or closing that chapter on your terms?" After much reflection, I decided to attend. Not for revenge, but for closure. Elaine offered to accompany me for support, and I gratefully accepted. If I was going to face my past, I wanted my future by my side. The week before the reunion, I finalized the purchase I had been considering for months, a Tesla Roadster custom-built to my specifications. The car cost just over $200,000, an extravagance I could now afford but had hesitated to indulge in until now. The timing seemed appropriate. We drove from Chicago to my hometown, a journey that took us through rolling farmland and small communities that had once been my entire world. As familiar landmarks appeared, I felt a strange detachment, as if I were observing someone else's memories. "You okay?" Elaine asked, placing her hand on mine as we passed the welcome sign at the town limits. "Better than I expected," I replied, and surprisingly it was true. I timed our arrival at the park for noon when most of the family would already be gathered. As I pulled the Tesla into the parking area, I felt every eye turn in our direction. The family reunion was held at Jefferson Park, the same location it had been since before I was born. As Elaine and I walked from the parking lot toward the gathering of folding tables and pop-up tents, I could see the double takes and whispered conversations ripple through the crowd. A cousin's wife who had never met me pointed discreetly, asking her husband who we were. My Uncle Robert stopped mid-sentence while flipping burgers on the grill. My mother was the first to approach us. 7 years had aged her considerably. Her hair, once dark brown with a few gray strands, was now completely silver. She had lost weight, and the lines around her eyes had deepened. She stopped a few feet away, tears forming as she took me in. "Gordon," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You came." "I got your letter," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. She looked past me at the Tesla, then to Elaine, questions in her eyes. "This is Elaine," I said. "My fiancée." Elaine stepped forward and extended her hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Harris." My mother shook her hand, then turned back to me. "You look well." "Very well. Life has been good to me," I said simply. The reunion was an exercise in surreal small talk. Relatives I hadn't seen in nearly a decade approached with tentative smiles and careful questions. Where was I living now? What was I doing for work? Was that really my car in the parking lot? I answered politely, but offered minimal details. "Chicago, real estate development." "Yes, that's my Tesla." As we made our way through the gathering, accepting plates of food and plastic cups of lemonade, I noticed the conspicuous absence of Derek and Jessica. When my cousin Abby asked about them within my mother's earshot, she responded with evident embarrassment. "They're running a bit late. Their car broke down again just a couple blocks from here. Derek called to say they're waiting for a friend to pick them up." She turned to me, perhaps feeling an explanation was needed. "They've been having a tough time. Derek lost his job at the construction company about 8 months ago. Something about budget cuts, but she left the real reason unspoken. They've been living with me while they get back on their feet. They have a little boy now, Nathan. He's 3. I nodded, unsurprised. Based on Derek's history, this trajectory seemed inevitable. My Aunt Cheryl, never one for tact, looked at my Tesla and then at me. "Seems like you're doing pretty well for yourself, Gordon." "Real estate, huh? Must be lucrative." "I've been fortunate," I said. Hard work, good mentors, and the right opportunities. And no distractions. Elaine added with a subtle squeeze of my hand. About an hour into the reunion, a battered Honda Civic pulled into the park. The muffler was hanging low, and one of the side windows was covered with plastic and duct tape. Derek and Jessica emerged, looking harried with a small boy between them. Derek wore jeans and a polo shirt that had seen better days. Jessica had gained weight, and her hair was pulled back in a hasty ponytail instead of the carefully styled waves I remembered. They froze when they spotted me clearly, not expecting I would actually show up. Jessica recovered, first taking her son's hand and walking toward the food tables, her eyes carefully avoiding mine. Derek, however, made a beeline in my direction, his face darkening with each step. "So you finally decided to show your face," he said when he reached us. "And with a fancy car, no less." "Trying to rub it in," Derek, my mother warned suddenly beside him. "Don't start." "I came because Mom invited me," I said calmly. "This is Elaine, my fiancée." "Elaine, this is my brother Derek." Derek barely glanced at Elaine. "Must be nice to run away from your responsibilities and come back playing big shot." "What responsibilities did I run from exactly?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "The responsibility to stay and watch you build a life with my fiancé after you lied about me cheating." Several nearby relatives pretended not to listen, while obviously straining to hear every word. "That was years ago," Derek said dismissively. "And things worked out how they were supposed to. Jessica and I were meant to be together. Is that why you're living with Mom and driving a car that's falling apart?" "Because things worked out so well." Derek's face flushed with anger. "Not everyone gets lucky breaks." "It wasn't luck," I replied. "It was a consequence of choices, yours and mine." My mother stepped between us. "Please, both of you. Can we not do this today, Gordon? I know we hurt you terribly, but you've clearly landed on your feet. Can't we try to move forward for Nathan's sake, if nothing else? He should know his uncle." I looked over at the little boy who was now sitting at a picnic table, Jessica helping him with a plate of food. He had Derek's dark hair and Jessica's nose, innocent in all of this. "I'm not here for revenge," I said finally. "I came for closure." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong, Gordon. About everything. The things I said that day. I can never take them back. But I've regretted them every day since. When you disappeared, I realized what I had done, which son I had really lost. I had to leave," I explained. "There was nothing for me here anymore." "I understand that now," she said. "But is there any chance? Could we have some kind of relationship going forward? I'm not asking you to forget, just. Maybe we could talk occasionally. I could know what's happening in your life." I considered her request. "I can't promise anything, but I'm open to trying. With boundaries." I turned to Derek, who was watching our exchange with a scowl. "I don't hold a grudge anymore, Derek. What happened forced me to become completely self-reliant, and in the end, that was the best thing for me. But I haven't forgotten, and I won't pretend it didn't happen." Before he could respond, I continued. "I'd like to set up a college fund for Nathan. He shouldn't suffer for past mistakes." Derek's expression cycled through surprise, suspicion, and finally, reluctant gratitude. That would be helpful. Thank you." I nodded. "Elaine and I should get going. We have a dinner reservation in Chicago tonight." As we said our goodbyes, Jessica finally approached her son, half hiding behind her legs. "Gordon, she began, then seemed at a loss for words. "It's okay, Jessica. It was a long time ago," I said. "Take care of your son. He seems like a good kid." Walking back to the car with Elaine, I felt lighter than I had in years. The past no longer weighed on me like an anchor. I had faced it on my terms and found that it held no power over me anymore. "How do you feel?" Elaine asked, as we drove away, the reunion growing smaller in the rearview mirror. Free, I replied. Completely free. Today, 2 years after that reunion, Elaine and I are married and expecting our first child. My business has expanded to multiple cities, and we divide our time between Chicago and a lake house we built last year. I speak with my mother monthly brief conversations that are slowly rebuilding a different kind of relationship than we had before. I've kept my distance from Derek and Jessica, but have maintained the college fund for Nathan, who now occasionally sends me drawings and school updates through my mother. The betrayal that once defined my life has become simply a chapter in my story, an important one that set me on an unexpected path, but no longer the central plot. I learned that sometimes the worst moments can propel us toward our best future if we refuse to be defined by the pain and instead use it as fuel for growth. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to a better path? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is show others that pain can be transformed into purpose. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life journeys of resilience and redemption. And if you know someone struggling with betrayal or feeling stuck after being hurt, share this video with them as a reminder that sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of finding something better. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your setbacks can become setups for the greatest comeback of your life.